Welcome to another episode of Black Scholars Speak as we laugh, inspire, uplift, and challenge the status quo. This is Black Scholars Speak. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Black Scholars Speak, where we are connecting research, culture, and community. I am your host, Janelle, and today's conversation is all about the power of the pivot. Remember that. This really means that our moment when life, purpose, and identity is nudging us to evolve. So today we are joined by Miss Erica Shoemate. And so welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Janelle, for having me. I'm so excited to speak with you today and also be able to also speak to your audience today. I think it's going to be an amazing conversation. I know our pre-interview was amazing, and I look forward to chatting again today.
That's so awesome. Yes, no, I'm really excited for this conversation too, y'all, because she has lived a journey that honestly, when I heard her talk and we were talking, full of unexpected twists and turns, all the way from her starting off in public administration, getting her master's there, maybe thinking that, okay, I might be in like this academic space, to then jumping to working with federal agencies, to working then in the tech space, and then stepping into AI. And then I honestly think one of her biggest pivots when she spoke to me was boldly stepping into motherhood, when she had to really become an advocate for her daughter. And so really, I hope the thing that y'all gather from this episode today is that her story really reminds us that experience is transferable across all spaces. We can always reinvent ourselves, and sometimes the greatest pivots come from the deepest parts of our lives. And so I'm really excited because this episode is going to be vulnerable. We're going to dig into a lot of different aspects of how she does it, right? I know right now within academia, it's so hard to pivot is what it feels like, right? We kind of feel like we're stuck in this space. And so before we jump in, I always start everybody off with a formal introduction because I think it's really important if we don't get to everything about you, or I say something in your bio and folks are like, oh, that sounds interesting, but they didn't talk about it, that they can kind of go back and revisit that. And so Miss Erica Shoemate is a bold disruptor, dynamic storyteller, and global thought leader with nearly 2 decades of experience at the intersection of national security, big tech, and policy innovation. A first-generation college graduate from inner city Memphis, she has earned degrees from Ole Miss, Arkansas State University, and is launching a career committed to building systems that center people, purpose, and strong policy guardrails. Erica spent over a decade in the FBI, which is so cool, and U.S. intelligence community leading sensitive asset threat mitigation and emerging tech risk strategy supporting global operations. I don't even know what half of that means. But I know it's important. And then she later transitioned to big tech, taking on global policy leadership roles at Amazon, Twitter, where she has shaped frameworks for ethical AI and ad tech transparency and user trust and safety. Now, as the founder of policy strategist of the Ian Strategy Group, she drives cross-sector initiatives that fuse innovation, regulatory strategy, and cultural context. Her work spans responsible AI, digital trust and safety, and digital identity protections for athletes. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Always within a people-first lens. So, whether we are speaking on stages of advising within the boardroom or challenges that leaders might face whenever they are trying to disrupt broken systems, Erica has been able to do this as she is empowering people within ethical innovation and having long-term impact. I'm excited. And so I want you to really, before we jump too far in, take us back to the beginning. You've got 2 degrees, right?
Yes.
And since this platform, we have a lot of folks who are in the academic space. I want you to just talk a little bit about like that first part of your journey when you were first going in, what you thought you were going to do.
Oh my goodness. As you shared, I am a first generation college graduate. I'm from inner city Memphis. So that within itself, I'm sure for your audience, for those who are first or second generation college grads, you do feel like a weight is on you, right? And so for me, I always thought almost like the traditional stuff, but I really thought I was going to either be a doctor or a lawyer. And by the time I went to college, I actually thought I was going to be a pharmacist as a freshman. And I did not do well in one of those general biology courses that is for majors. And I was so shocked. I was so confused as to what is happening. But I did not actually change my major
Mm,
until the second semester of my junior year of college, and I actually took a legal studies 101 course and loved it. It came so effortlessly, like I soared. And
mm,
that was one of my initial pivots from a collegial standpoint.
uh-huh.
Everything changed from then on. And instead of me becoming a pharmacist, I was like, okay, well, I'll go to law school. Well, I'm not a great standardized test taker who, have similar fears around standardized tests. And like if universities are solely focused on that, then I probably would have never got
Yeah.
into college, nor graduate school. And so understanding some of these things. I took the LSAT. I did not do well, and that scared me. And I usually don't get too afraid. I'm not a risk averse person. I keep trying. I'll push a door open until I knock it down, unless God tells me something completely different. So God knows He has to like say no, like a big no, no. Otherwise, I'll keep trying. But in this instance, I said, okay, I needed to pivot. And so looking at different programs, knowing that I was also a student clerk at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Mississippi at the time. Knew I wanted to do something in public service, not exactly sure,
Mm,
and didn't realize that there was a whole world of like public administration and public policy. And I visited some schools and ultimately decided on Arkansas State. One, it is not far from Memphis, where I'm originally from. And two, my out of state tuition would have been waived, which it wasn't an undergrad, being still in close proximity, Oxford, Mississippi to Memphis, and then Memphis
mm,
to Jonesboro, Arkansas. And so at Arkansas State, I really began to find my way. And again, going back to standardized test taking, Arkansas State did not have any heavy emphasis on standardized assessments. And so they just looked at my GPA, my last 60 hours, the work that I have been doing on the campus. And for your audience at Ole Miss, there's a prestigious leadership class that happens every year. It's called the Chancellor's Leadership Class. And
mm,
I was a part of that as well. And being able to like just have such a well-rounded experience. I know it's like a cliche, but I really did. And like I learned so much as someone who did not come from a lot, opened my eyes to what was
mm,
possible. I knew that education would be somewhat of my ticket. I did not have all the ducks in a row, but I knew that my life would not be the same because how serious I took education. And the only thing that was stopping me was me. And so when I got to Arkansas State, I mean, I sat at the feet of professors, Black professors, white professors, it didn't matter. And we had real conversations. I would have lunch with them. And just so happening, I had a lunch with a Black professor who was in journalism, and she was amazing. Dr. Fears. I'm almost like, oh my gosh, it's been so long ago, but I'm almost sure. And she was telling me my dream was to always to get to DC.
mm,
She was telling me about this program that Arkansas State was becoming a part of and showed me like the paperwork. I was like, the best thing you could do for me is tell me about something. And I am on a hunt to figure this thing out. And so she told me about it, and I figured out, all the processes. So for your audience, long story short, I became one of three scholarship recipients in the entire nation that earn the Pi Sigma Alpha Honor Society scholarship, which is a political science honor society. And with me having being in the MPA program, the Masters of Public Administration, all falls in the same.
Yeah.
And the Washington Center internship program, which is here in Washington, D.C., had a whole partnership. And so I was able to have my housing paid for and the program as a part of that. And whatever else wasn't covered, my tuition was able to cover that. And then my whole world changed, including my first flight ever,
Mm.
being able to like explore DC in a way I never fathom, and being able to have an internship with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention really was the thing that propelled me, because I was able to get my first full-time job with full benefits as a result of the not only internship, but the network that I had created. And that role ended up being me working for the Shelby County District Attorney General's office, which is where Memphis sits in the county of Shelby. You get the point.
Yeah, it's Shelby County.
And I told the DA at the time that he was going to hire me. So find some
Mm.
money, you will hire me. And every week until he found money, after we met, I emailed him. I'm not joking.
Yeah, it's good. It's persistence, and you were betting
Yes,
and counting on yourself.
yes,
And you probably had, and that's okay. Whenever we're navigating and we're going through our life's journey, right? We don't know what doors are going to open and what ones aren't. And
ex
like what I'm hearing a lot here, and a lot of times, folks, I get all the time. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm kind of scared to talk to them, or I
right.
don't know. That feels too bold. And it usually comes from women, because
True.
men,
Oh my gosh. Yes.
because
So
men
true.
don't really care.
No, they don't. They're like, I'm going after it most of the time, right? Like,
Yes, but the fact that you were like, "No, I'm betting on myself and you will fund me. I will work here. We are going to work together." I think is something really awesome to highlight.
thank you. Yeah. And I figured that's something too, like you said, with scholars, not only scholars, but, I know you have like a multitude of like a targeted population of people that listen to your podcast, but as an underrepresented person, as a Black woman, really having that mindset helped me actually to not really fully think about like
Mm,
what landmines I might land on, what's the right move. I didn't have all of the teachable, like the coaches and the mentors. I had great mentors, but not ones that were going to set me up for the world that I was going into, right? And so some of this was honestly my natural gift, my superpowers of being a connector, being relatable, being able to storytell, being able to, again, be engaged. I always tell people curiosity is the currency. And so while I was during my internship, I actually had an opportunity to meet with, at the time, the director of victims assistance for the FBI. And that conversation was supposed to be 30 minutes as a part of my portfolio. It actually turned out to be more than an hour. And I
mm,
stayed in touch with this phenomenal assistant director. And I literally still connected with her throughout my entire career once I got into government. And like literally, I started in local government, contracting, then my first full time role, and then to the bureaus where I grew up, I would say professionally, was really such an eye opening experience. And for your audience, because I know we'll hit on this a little later, I still love science. I
mm,
still have such a love, and when I say about curiosity is the currency, I stay like in like medical journal research. I mean, I'm such a like literally this such ever evolving person is what I will say, like such a dork, and always wanting to know and be curious and like what's happening, why is this happening. And I know we'll talk a little later too in regards to how that curiosity and how that really anticipatory critical thinking actually
mm.
helped to also save my own daughter's life. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think something too that really stuck out to me that you said was the fact that it's not always about what you know, but it's that ability to say that I have other skills and assets that are going to also take me really far in this space. I think for me personally, that really resonated with me, you saying that, because I seem like you when I was in high school. I'm not even high school. Well, yeah, I guess high school. I graduated 2.5 GPA. My dad says I graduated, thank you, Lottie. Like,
Like,
barely got out of there. But my mom, she was always like, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and it's about your social capital. So,
yes.
what are you doing
Mm,
to market yourself so that
mm.
people fall in love with you? And guess
Yeah.
what, Janelle? She said, you can learn it. And I was like, can I? But she was like, you can learn it. You can get all the nitty gritty. They'll teach you all of that stuff like later on, like whether
Yeah,
you stay in school or you go be like on a job somewhere. But what gets you into the door is about them falling in love with you. And that's a skill that I think a lot of women, even
I
like a
agree.
lot of Black and brown folks, we
Yes,
need to start looking at ourselves, not just based on what we know and like maybe our degrees or the things that we've achieved. And who are you? What makes you special and what you bring to any interaction that you have with someone?
I don't disagree, and that's actually one thing that I talk about a lot. Like, I'll sometimes get in some of the free workshops and things that I offer, and like some of like my business ventures. I'll see so many women, saying like what they don't have, like coming from this place of like, from a deficit versus from like being abundance. And for me, I literally will not speak from a place of deficit, particularly when I know I have an end goal in mind. And if that end goal seems way off to everyone else, that's okay. I know my worth, I know my value, and I'm very sure of it, even when I'm not sure of it, right? And really, to your point about moving in spaces, particularly as a minority, it's a different layer of things that we even have to consider. And I love what you said about like not what you know, but who you know. We do hear that a lot, like no matter where you are in society. I will say the caveat to that though is, unfortunately, for those who find themselves like again in these spaces of like, this was great. I always say things are great until it's not, right?
Mm.
And as a woman, as a Black woman, what I have found is our genius, our brilliance, it starts out as being like, oh my gosh, amazing, and like the pet, right? And then you go from pet to threat. You can go from pet to threat really quickly. You have to, because I'm now learning these life skills along the way, I just want to share with your audience, this is where you have to go dig deep, get your village, find your community, and remind yourself, I am who I said I am. And if you are a believer of whatever faith, I am who God says I am. And I'm going to stand on that. And no, I'm not crazy. I know what I bring to this table, even if you are being gaslit to think something differently. Because surely, this school or this organization, this company didn't recruit you because they thought you might be smart. No, they recruited you because you are smart. You are the talent. You are one of one. And no matter how many more of us are
Yeah.
doing the same thing, no one speaks you like you speak you.
Yes. And that really reminds me of when we first talked and you talked about you pivoting from being at, the FBI and wanting to move up and going for promotion and then it not happening.
Yeah.
Like you being well qualified to
Overqualified.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And
That
I
was
think when
real.
you said going from pet to threat, like, and it could be just boom, and you don't even see it coming. Cause I feel like I've also experienced that where like I thought that I was cool, we were good. I feel like I'm playing the game.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they go, nope, you're still this.
Right. It's like
And what do
being
you do in those?
reminded that you're never enough. And like, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It's like don't get too high up. Don't
Yes.
shine too bright because we will remind you where where we want you to
To
be.
be. You're here, even though we know you're here. No, you're here according to us. But the thing is, in that regard, again, when you're having these moments, because it can really be a lot of psychology that's happening in the mind when these things are happening, and it does not feel good. Does not
Yeah.
feel good. It takes a lot on you. And to your point about being just overqualified, what I had to remind myself as I did make my pivot out of the FBI into big tech was when I realized that I was not moving at the rate I should be moving. And because I not only had showed myself and done all the things, I blatantly watched certain things happen
Mm.
that literally told me this is another time you gotta wait your turn. And I was done waiting my turn. I am the turn. I've done the work. As I was exiting, then I started getting all the calls and things from like executives like, oh no, what role do you want? I don't want any role. And that was the miscalculation. I am a very intentional, very calculated person. And now that I understand how my neurospicy brain works and
Mm.
why I was very intentional and why I liked certain things, I now can reaffirm that that was why I was always saying, I don't want any job. I want the jobs I applied for because I'm not looking just for the promotion. I want impact. Impact
Mm.
matters to me. I don't wanna just be going and I'm bored out of my mind doing some admin ridiculousness when I'm used to doing strategic operations. It's all I know. I'm used to, like, literally, the matters of life or death. If you do this or you recommend this or don't do this, this go bad, right? And so you cannot try to suppress who I am because it's making you feel certain type of way, yet you get to say all the fancy buzzwords, yet you don't even have half the depth that I bring. And that is when I became very clear. And I decided, not only as a mother, as a new mom, but after all the things that, kind of culminate in your career, that I was officially betting on myself in a way that I had never fully quite fathomed.
It's so when did you know? Because I think that's the thing, is it's like you get to the point, I think we all get to a point where we realize like, okay, this is not working for me. But
Yes.
then when do you know when it's time to pivot into something else?
Great question. So for years I knew. So I'm big on my year 3,
Mm.
my year 5, my year 7.5, 8, my year 10. Like it's not like I got it all written out, but I do reassess where I am and am I growing? Do I still love what I'm doing? And so at year 5, I knew that I would be making at some point a transition because I could see myself like capping out as far as like intellect and being able to do things that continue to blow my mind. I felt like I had hit some sort of like wall at some point or that I would hit a wall at some point. So I was like, okay, at year 5, I decided that I would take some different assignments. They're called joint duty assignments in the government where you can go to another agency, do different things. So I did 2 back-to-back assignments. Best decision ever, life-changing, career changing, professionally mind blowing, right? And having the opportunity to not only travel a lot overseas, also being able to operate in like these high threat areas and being the person that, at the highest levels of government, they're asking you what your assessment is on XYZ,
Yeah.
threat picture and, issues or whatever was really that kind of like, wow, this is beyond my wildest dreams. A girl from inner city Memphis,
I know
public
it's
schools. Not that I went to like the worst schools. Like, I mean, I did take the city bus to go to better schools. My mom will put me off with my sister. And so I, I graduated like the top 10% of my class in high school. College was a different story, but high school was definitely I education is the thing where I found therapy. Like
mm.
it was my safe haven. And if you couldn't find me anywhere else, you could likely find me in a book or find me writing. Also, essay contests at a very young age in elementary school. I entered, I won, and still to this day, writing, typing, whatever is very therapeutic for me. And so to your audience, like, when do you know it's time to pivot? Is that there's something in your soul that
Mm,
isn't being fired anymore, like the spark either leaves, or let me just call it what it is, or you're in a space where you no longer feel psychologically safe. And I want to just, because we've been conditioned, particularly those who are, Black or African Americans here from America, we have to remember the generational trauma that our ancestors have endured, and those things have been passed down over the years. That almost like secret society within your own community. Don't talk about this. Don't feel these things. Don't do these things. And what we know is that Black women particularly have a much higher allostatic load, meaning, for your audience who don't know, stress load, right?
mhm.
And it's okay to be married to your peace over your dollars. Like, yes, I know we need to eat. Yes, I know we have to pay bills, but what does it matter if the job is killing me anyway? What bills am I going to have if,
Right, from dead.
right? And those are the things that I really started to think about. I was like, I'm no longer going to stay somewhere too long. And then I'm now the disgruntled employee. I'm the
Mm,
person now that's jaded. I'm the Debbie Downer. I am the negative Nancy. No, thank you. It's not the life that I live. And it's not the life that I want to start living in my career either. And so you do have a choice. People are like, oh, you have a choice. You don't have to stay where you're not celebrated. Either you can go where
mm.
you are celebrated, or you can go make your own table and build it. I know that sounds, again, so like, but who gonna help me? Let's be clear. We have beautiful minds, and we also have beautiful community. If
Mm,
and if generations before us could, like, create these things with no social media, no internet,
right,
not even have the skills we have, and there's
right.
this thing called AI.
Yeah.
I know it's like the boogeyman a lot of times for our people, but that's also an area that I educate on, and very much so aware of, like, some of the things, like, this ubiquitous type of technology and, like, what that, like, means, but also teaching our communities how to operationally, like, being operationally secure in some of these environments, like the pros, cons, these different type of things. Because I always tell people, knowing when to leave, you have to have a plan. And I know
Yeah.
there are few that are, faith has them leaping and jumping. And I also want to be clear that I had a plan. I had like a 2.5, 3 year transition plan. And the seat was like hot and ready for me. It was, again, right? Because it has to be right. You have to know what the market wants. You have to know what the market needs. Does the market need your talent today? Or is it 6 months down the road? And again, that's the curiosity piece.
Yes, and I think, because I'm thinking it kind of back to, like, again, what I've heard a lot of, other colleagues talk about with, there's this kind of rise and, like, this mass exit of, like,
Mhm.
academia into other spaces, which is fine.
Right.
But I think something that you just said, is this the right time? And I think back to what you said too before of, like, are you still psychologically safe in the space that, like, you're in? I think, and this is me speaking from experience, from, like, just different things. Sometimes I know it's not a psychologically safe space, but the time is not right to
Yes,
leave.
that's real, right? I've been there. I've absolutely been there. Had to definitely take some bigger cuts than I wanted, like, from a mental stability standpoint. But
Mm, mhm.
I got up, smiled every single day, endured a lot of that post becoming a mom and having a child with medically complex needs, and, like, the small paper cuts over time, but do become cumulative. And what you have to say to yourself, if I do have to stay, then I really need to have a plan for how I am going to work through this trauma
Mm,
once I'm able to either get out of the trauma, or I'm having to continue to sit in it. Do I have health insurance? Do I have a therapist? Are there resources online so that I can continue to work through these things? Because it is a reality that sometimes we have to stay longer than we want to. And I have been one of those people, but that still shouldn't deter you from having a plan, right?
Right. Right. And I completely agree with that. I think I've been in situations where it's like I know it's time to go, but I don't know where to go. Or it's like I gotta wait, or God is telling me to be patient and wait for that time. And there's still something here for me to learn, even in this challenging moment. But what I really love that you said is that you don't have to do it in silo. You also can start to develop a plan of, like you said, therapists that are there
Mhm.
that we can kind of lean on, or whether it be social support. What does your community look like? Like for me, while I'm in my PhD program, I mean, even just this week, like dealing with certain professors and stuff like that, like it sometimes can just mess with your mind.
Mhm.
But I have a really great mentor who I've talked about and exhaust at this point on the podcast, Dr. Fayron Epps, who I literally last night was like, hey, this is going on, this is happening, and I just need to vent and just get this off my
Yes.
chest. And then just for her to pour back into me so then I can say, you know what? I'm ready to like I'm grabbing candles and pins, but I'm ready to like get my weapons or like my armor, like put that on and to go back out and battle until it's time for me to leave. And I think within a lot of these academic spaces, we've got to get the PhD, you've got to get the master's, you've got to get through it. So it's like you're still going to have to go through some things. But I do like what
Absolutely.
you said, that it's the acknowledgement that
Mhm.
this is not a forever place for me. And I need to equip myself with the resources to get through it effectively.
Yes, absolutely. That is it. And I did. I had a whole behavioral health team in place as I was navigating this real life journey. And again, that goes back to like the grit and the resilience. Like we don't want
Mm,
to have to do those things, but the beauty of being coming from a quote unquote underdog space, or like the minority, and like always seen as less than, it actually in many ways can also play to your favor.
yes, yes, because it's
Being
igniting.
underestimated.
Yes, you're underestimating. And then guess what? You have that resilience built up. So you have something in you that
You,
other people don't have.
and no one
Like
can
you
touch
have
it.
a dog in you that's just like
Yes.
unreal.
No, it's so true. And we're just built different. Like, there's one thing that I say about minority communities in general, and take it a step further, particularly being here in America, Black women, I say we have like a sixth sense and a seventh sense. The sixth sense is like that thing that like everybody, like they are, that is kind of different. The seventh sense is something that you can't even touch, literally cannot be
Mhm.
touched. And I think that sometimes that is what intimidates people that don't know a lot about us. The only thing that they know is like the stereotypes and the things that they have been taught through movies and propaganda and these things. And so therefore at times you're either tested to see how far will someone allow you to let them do disrespectful things, or sometimes just downright racist things in whatever environment you're in. And that is one thing that is important, that courage under fire is so important, because it's important to nip things in the bud before they become more. Because when you assert yourself early and often, then you have built a level of armor and
Yeah.
almost like these walls around you. Even if someone attempts to break through, basically you have been warned, and I'm going to move accordingly in that regard. And so not only are the things about knowing when to pivot is, again, either you're feeling it, something life shattering happens, or something life changing. It could be good, it could be awesome, or it could be horrible. And sometimes that causes us to want to honestly be rebirthed, or literally like you realize that you have a completely different purpose, right? And you can feel it. And I will tell anyone that is listening, you know And sometimes we run from that voice that's telling us it's time. And what happens is sometimes we stay in those spaces and places too long.
Yeah, we're scared. Or they told us that, like, "Oh, you can't move." Like, we
That's it.
have these, like, invisible, like, shackles
It's true.
on. We're like, "Oh, you can't do that
Not yet,
yet."
not yet, not yet. Wait next semester, wait next year. Here's your plan, but they don't ever really have a plan. And so when you start to understand the writings on the wall, then you should be moving accordingly and do not expect that someone is going to do anything differently. As Maya Angelou says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I don't care if that is your toxic family member, if that is a professional in the workplace, a leader, like that's just who they are. And until they show you differently, you should be moving and planning accordingly. And I always tell people, the cliche of like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I'm always
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah. And so oh man, I love this conversation, but I also want us to talk about how you moved from government to
Yeah.
tech. Because again, and then maybe you can also give us a little education on AI. Also too, y'all, this episode might be a little longer because these are just such good gems that are being dropped here. Because to go from a completely different sector like government to then
Mhm.
jump into the tech space, I want y'all to know that that's not an easy feat.
It's not, especially for minorities, underrepresented communities. I do see a lot more non-minority people who are able to make that switch much more quickly. Again, what did I say? I had a almost 3-year transition period. It wasn't that I was not trying. I also think there was some divine intervention that was happening too. For your listeners, I was so done with where I was. One, because my daughter, by that time, also had been born, and she is a medically complex child, as I mentioned briefly earlier, but she is also a cardiac patient and open heart
Mm,
surgery survivor. And when COVID hit, that really expedited my pivot, because my husband and I both were like, well, we both can't be going into the office. Mm,
yeah.
and making those type of decisions. And also I was still already had been actively putting a plan in place to pivot. And so to your point about it's not that easy, I remember having a very difficult time trying to show others, in tech spaces, how my work in national security was like a one for one for the work that they were doing. But because they had only been in tech, they either couldn't see it. I don't know at times if it was biased, if I'm being honest, or I mean, there are some smart people in this space. So I'm not all of those things, but some of it was definitely like,
Yeah.
too much kind of thing, I think at times. And also, again, it's easier to be like, well, we don't get you, than to say, oh, is something wrong with your experience, right?
Mm,
And we have to like sometimes call the thing a thing and then move on. And so I had to learn that it wasn't me, that I one either was not meant to go into these roles that I thought that I so qualified for, no matter how much I try. I mean, I would literally be in interviews and like some of the panelists would be like, "Oh my gosh, your resume, your experience, like the way you speak, like it hits." And I'm thinking like, "I've killed it." Don't get the job. And I'm like, "What?" Like literally killed it. Like I think differently, all these things. And so remember that it's not always the skill,
yeah.
right? It's not even all about the savviness. It's also about other people's perception, other people's own weakness, other people's own flaws, other people's own insecurities that could also get in the way of you getting the role that you think you are qualified for. And that's just at times what it is. And this is someone who is a glass half full, that I had to have this reckoning in the last 3 to 5 years to be like, nope, the thing is the
Mm,
thing. And so pivoting into these spaces required a lot of cold messaging to people I didn't even know, recruiters I would apply and like message. And really, that's how I was able to successfully make my first shift was a lot of cold messaging, outreach, apply for this role, looking at different things, talking to different people. And I reached out to a sourcer who is a recruiter that is proactively looking for people, didn't even know at the time. And she was like, your resume is the one I've legit been looking for. And about 3 weeks later, I had my first official offer, and completely life changing. Not easy, not simple. The work that I have been able to do even post government, that was already crazy. But going into like tech, I think 2020 through 2022, how crazy
Mhm.
that was. Those couple of years felt like a whole decade. And being at the forefront of that work as someone who was the former head of Psych Policy Americas at
Yeah.
Twitter 1.0, so safety and cybercrime is what I oversaw. And then also, I was recruited then by Amazon
Yeah.
for their global head of display and sponsor ad policies. And so, again, there are times that you will be reaffirmed. And then there
Yeah.
are times where you will feel like, maybe I need to get something else. Maybe I need another degree. And I tell people
Mhm.
like, no, sometimes it's not even, don't get another degree. And I had to tell myself, because the one thing about being able to pivot from government, I think there was some divine intervention happening too, because I was at year 9 at the time. I thought I was ready. Well, at year 10 would have given me 10 years of public service, right?
Yeah.
Which allows me to tap into, at the time, the public service loan forgiveness program because
Right.
of my master's
Right.
degree work. And so I just really believe God was like, no, you got one more year. You're not going nowhere. And so I made it. And sure enough, I was able to have the rest of my student loans for undergrad and graduate school forgiven. And I'm so grateful for that. But that's how done I was. You have to remember that you have a plan and then there's a higher plan.
Mm.
Well, and that's just also part of life, but how do you pick yourself back up when you think you're ready for something and it doesn't happen? And being able to still continue to build this level of resilience and grit for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that when I think of like the whole term, like your whole term of like the power of the pivot, it doesn't necessarily mean that you pivot and like it's always a completely different direction or it's like going backwards or whatever it is. It could be pivoting to just keep going forward.
Yes. It's a turn. When you're pivoting, you're turning, right?
Right. And it could really just be that it's a reassessment, a
Yes.
realignment, and all right, it's not time yet, but you started those thoughts and those things. So, like, even whenever you were making that transition and it was really tough to like land your first job in tech, coming from government sector with all of this breath, I'm so surprised that people were like, like, crawl, like, trying to get, like, that's crazy.
I honestly humbly felt the same. And even in today's world, sometimes I feel the same. And I'm like, God, why does everything always have to be so hard for me? Like I
But
always
it's
have.
preparing you though, right? So that when you step into those spaces, you have no reservations about why
Yes.
you're there. And like,
So
that's
true.
what I've had to learn is that every hard thing that you go through isn't just for
For
lack of better words, shits and giggles.
giggles.
It
Oh my God, my
really
favorite one. Yeah. Yeah.
to to especially sharpen you as you are iron. So then when you go into other spaces and you see someone who's going through the same thing that you're going through, then guess what? Now we're having iron sharpen iron,
Iron.
right? And we're
Yes.
built, especially like too, that's what I really love about this podcast is it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, in your continuum. If you're thinking about starting and going off to undergrad for the first time, or if you're
Right.
going into tech, like it doesn't really matter because this is that space where we've all been through it. And so we
Yes.
can all say through our experience, since we've gone through the through parts, that we can now sharpen each other.
That's it. Come on now. Yeah, that is really, that's the power of community and the collective, is that we don't get anywhere by ourselves. And You can, but it is quite lonely. And then two, you're still gonna eventually need someone along the way. And
Yeah.
we get nowhere like ultimately just by ourselves, right? And we had to be birthed here to begin with. That's a start. And really thinking about, I call it the brown and brown communities of us. We are, our DNA is not built in a way for us to be naturally individualistic people and communities.
Yeah.
That's not us. We we thrive when we are in community. It is the thing that has helped us be able to survive some of the most life's harshest conditions
Yeah.
for any human, right? Is because of that level of not only resilience, but collective strength is what I would say.
Yes. Okay, get this. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing. But the power of the pivot is community. Boom.
Yes.
I got your new tag for
Yes.
you for your next workshop.
Love it. I love it.
Mentioned your daughter too as well, and how she was a big influence in you making this change when you did, especially during the midst of COVID and her health issues and things that she has. But that also meant that you took on a whole nother role of being an health advocate for yourself whenever you were pregnant, and
Mhm.
then for your daughter as she is living with her health condition.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, yeah, more because it's, I think we think about pivoting and we think about like all of the jobs and the
Right.
this when,
Professional stuff, right?
right, the professional stuff, when life will also throw
Life be
us.
life in. Look.
And how do we adjust and how do we navigate and maneuver there? Because you've become a public speaker and advocate for, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about the
Sure.
disease that your daughter has.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, by the way. Really thinking about like not only like my daughter's diagnoses and just kind of like where we are today and the power of the pivot. And one thing I always say to people I'm working with in like some of my educational workshops or as clients is that don't panic, pivot. Because we
Mm,
know that with panic, there comes paralysis. When you pivot, as you said, there's power in the pivot. That doesn't mean that you don't think about it, you don't cry, whatever that is happening around you. It's just saying don't stay there too long because that's when the world starts to get really dark. And I know what
mm.
dark is. And in one moment, everything that I knew about planning, like I am the plan for the plan, the type A, the type B, the type C, or the part B, the part C, part D. It's like Medicare. It's kind of the how I imagine my and I knew about planning, control, and like this outcomes though, and how I lived my life. But in one instant, one
Yeah.
statement, all of that evaporated. And so I went from being this high performance professional to a mother navigating such a very rare disease, disorder, and there was no real blueprint for it, right? So at 20 and a half weeks, 20 half, 20 half, 21 weeks, that's when I learned about our daughter's diagnoses. And but at 20 weeks is when we found out that our baby was measuring a few weeks behind. But at the time, my OB/GYN did not think much of it because I am a pretty petite person, under 5 feet. And but my husband is, very tall considering 6'2". So it was like, okay, she, tall, but also a slim build as well. And so it's like, it may not be anything, it's okay if baby's measure small, but she wanted to make sure that it also wasn't something like brittle bone disease.
Mm,
Also can be a part of like the rare kind of disorders that my daughter's condition falls in. So on June 1st, 2017, the world that I once knew no longer existed anymore because I had an appointment, my husband and I, with the high risk specialist or maternal fetal medicine doctor. And his words as he came into the room after having This second level ultrasound was, I'm so sorry. Your baby has a condition that's not compatible with life. You both should terminate, heal, and try again, literally in that order. And said that it would be a horrific birthing experience for, essentially our daughter would likely suffocate upon birth, forward. And so having to literally realize the trauma that was happening in that moment and knowing that trauma changes your DNA.
Yeah.
To not have any behavioral health resources in the hospital setting, like as this is all playing out, I felt like I was living in a twilight zone.
Mm.
And this is someone, myself, who wasn't even sure about motherhood to begin with. But then I was immediately, like, excited, found out the news, everything had been going well, no real issues, and I was ready to take it on by storm. I had
Yeah.
just been promoted. I was in a leadership role beginning of the year, found out I was pregnant in February, and then we get to May, and I'm like, again, the plan for the plan girl. I was like, well, I waited until I was 18 weeks to say anything to social media, so not just the 12 weeks, the first trimester,
Mhm.
I waited even longer, so surely it should be all good, but no one ever told me that pregnancy is great until it's not, and that the 20-week anatomy scan is where it's beautiful. You can learn the sex of the baby, all those things, but it also can be a time where you learn your child could have some, genetic issues that really are devastating and life changing. Yeah, yeah. And that changed my whole world, and really thinking about, like, what transpired over those next 2 to 4 weeks included me going to get a second opinion,
Yeah.
hearing the news all over again, amniocentesis, all these things that I didn't even have time to think about. I was just doing it. And I actually am so glad that I didn't have time to think about some of these things, because those things actually were super helpful further along in my pregnancy. And learning that, our child had a very rare form of dwarfism. The initial diagnosis was a misdiagnosis, which was called short rib polydactyly syndrome, which is a very rare form of dwarfism. About 99% of babies pass away, and a lot of them are advised to terminate as well. But our daughter had what is called Ellis Van Creveld syndrome, which is another form of dwarfism with a very high mortality rate, still in 300 cases reported globally, but it's highly concentrated in the Amish Dutch community. And so
Interesting.
I know, I know. But I did, as during my research and learning more, I was able to connect with another mother who was a non-Amish mom and lived out west, and that was very helpful. And my husband actually, I'll just say briefly, had a dream that I was waddling, and at the time that didn't make sense because I was 21, 22 weeks. And when you're having your first baby, you're not really showing that much. So I'm like waddling.
Mm.
And that was our sign, him being a dreamer, that we had carried our daughter to term. And a lot of that was like the confirmation and the reaffirmation that we needed, because we also
Mm.
learned that this wasn't a condition that insurance was going to be willing to pay
Mm.
for, as far as like the determination procedures. And what I try to tell people who are listening is that, as a woman of faith, as a Christian woman, I will say that do not allow religion to fool matters of the heart, because you don't know what you will do until you're in it. And trust me, no one is just sitting there, it's a woman signing their hands up like, yeah, pick me today for this
Right.
horrific, life changing thing that's happening. And we have to be honest about these things, because I always say we can't talk about maternal health if we aren't talking about women's and reproductive health as well.
Yes. Yes.
right? And me, as a result of my daughter's journey, now just fast forward, and we decided to carry. She was born at 37 weeks and 4 days. And so much happened on that day. It really shocked the entire operating room as to what was happening. I'll, drop my blog link. People can read all about it
Yeah.
as well. They want to learn a little more. But in my maternal health work, as a result of Nia's journey, I became not only a maternal health advocate, but also a strategist. Also, being someone that medical experts reach out to when there are other families who are in similar situations, and not just being a voice of reason, but someone who clinicians look at as being able to have navigated such complex healthcare
Mhm.
and medical facilities across state lines, different areas, and do it well. I really am grateful for my daughter's journey because it has allowed me to use some of my superpowers and some of the power I didn't even know I had to help save other babies' lives, to give them the data and the facts, and also humanize it though in a way that you're not judged. You're not being told this is what you should or shouldn't do, but these are the appropriate resources and these are the experts in this field. And so for the last 6.5 years, I have been a maternal health ambassador, also with the March of Dimes, who fights for
Mhm.
healthy moms and strong babies. And I was just recently named a founding member and maternal health policy co-chair for the Maternal and Infant Health Equity Coalition here in the DMV, the DC area, with March of Dimes. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you so
I
much.
Yes, and when I first heard your story, again, it really touched me, not being, a mom and going through like the same thing, but just navigating the healthcare system, period.
Period.
I told you about our experience
Yes,
with mom and how we just felt so lost and we didn't know what we didn't know.
that's it.
And a lot of that has influenced even the work that I do within my research,
Yes,
because just like you said, I'll be damned if there's another person who I come across who experiences the same thing. And no, you can't save everyone,
everyone,
right?
right?
But it's about what you can do.
Yes,
I think that the biggest message for researchers is y'all are also listening into this episode and into Erica's experience and her story. It's really that you can use your story to make an impact.
yes,
Your experiences that you go through can have a ripple impact. And so, as we close this
yes,
episode for today, one, I want to say thank you for being here and for just really embarking all of your wisdom, all of what you've gone through, and being so vulnerable. Your vulnerability today has been unmatched. And
thank
so,
you.
we really, really appreciate that. And as we close this conversation, I really want to remind everyone that pivots aren't just career moves. They're life moves. They're
Yes,
movements when we choose ourselves, our calling, and we expand on that whenever it's possible. So, if you are a Black scholar, researcher, or creative who is listening right now, remember you are allowed to evolve. You're allowed to redirect, and you are absolutely equipped to take your skills, your story, and your brilliance wherever purpose is leading you next. So until next time, keep shining, keep learning, keep speaking your truth, because this is Black Scholars Speak. And I've almost forgot as I came up with that awesome closing. Erica, can you tell us how we can reach out to you?
absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at my handle is at the policy goddess. So at policy, of course, POLICY goddess, GODDESS. And also I'm sure it'll be dropped in the link with this episode. And you can also find me on LinkedIn under Erica S MPA. Or you can also follow me on my website or come reach out. It's called Lead with in Strategy.ai. That's the work that I do in the consulting space as it relates to AI and emerging technology. And I'm speaking in the space as we look at how human-centered policies are being developed or not, and the guardrails and things of governance that should be surrounded by all of this innovation. And then if you're interested in my maternal health work, you can find me at my name, www.ericalshumate.com. So really, really grateful.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Until next time, we will talk to y'all later.